Hello, everyone. This is Zen. Welcome to the Zen Lounge podcast. This podcast is all about becoming the best version of yourself. It's a personal development podcast, and I have an expert of human design with me. A lot of you guys have heard me talk about this subject with Chris O'Brien, a few months ago. But we got Kieran with us. Kieran is an expert. He knows a lot about it. He's been doing it for years, studying from the best of the best. And he's going to be teaching us, and he's going to be going over my human design a little bit on this show. And he'll explain how you could basically find your own human design so you could become the best version of yourself as well. Kieran, did I explain it good? How's it going?
You did. You did. You did a great job. Yeah. So it's really an incredible system of knowledge for somebody who doesn't know anything about it. This will be a great introduction. We'll start from the ground up. But what we're talking about here is the science of who you are. It's really the map to your own being, and it's has to do with your genetics. And what that does is it emanates a field which creates your aura. So that's a very woo-woo term to a lot of people, like your aura, your energy, etc. But this is the science of that, because there is a reality to that. Like if you walk into a room and two people have been fighting, you can feel that heavy presence, right? You can cut the tension with a knife. We're all familiar with how each other's auras interact or what they interact with each other. So we can feel that energy. It's palpable. And your energy speaks before your words do, right? Because you have a presence, and each person is kind of like living in their own energy. So you don't even understand your own energy, your own impact, right? You're just like in your own little field. It's like an energy soup that you're just in your aura. And your aura changes like based on your mood. There's things like that. There's people who can photograph your aura. They call that Kirlian photography, right? And they have a method of photography where they can capture how that aura changes, and it's different colors. Some people who even had near-death experiences and were physically dead for 20 minutes, right? Drowned underwater and then resuscitated. Some people have come back to life and then been able to see the physical aura. Or even a blind person in World War II, he could see the physical aura of people. And they used him to read the aura of people to see if they're lying or not during World War II. So, it's been very well known for a long time. Everyone has an aura. But what does that mean? How is that particular for each person? And then it gets into the uniqueness of each individual. Like each of us has a fingerprint that makes us unique. So does our aura. No one has what is activated in your human design chart the same in their chart. Even twins born minutes apart. I worked with them, and one of them was like, well, look at my sister's chart. And I said, well, on the surface level, it's identical. But there's levels that go 6 layers deep in each person's design. And I looked at those deeper levels and I showed them like, these are the percentages different. Like here, you can see that in the software. You won't be able to see that on like the surface websites that people go to look up their charts, but you can see how much that changes. So I'll share a background. Yeah, this is my site.
You beat me to it. Let me stop my share.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen too, and I'll do some background on what human design is, where it comes from, and then how do you use it? What are the basics of energy types? Because there's 4 different energy types. They've broken down into generators, projectors, manifestors, reflectors. So everyone falls into one of those 4 categories. And it's kind of like in human design or astrology, where you hear about like, well, I'm a Taurus, right? You and I are Tauruses because we're both born in the same period of May. We're born 5 days apart, right? But the other things about our birthdays are like so different. Like look at our human design charts. I'll show you later. Wildly different, because the other planets have changed positions, right? The years have changed. So much has changed. So there's so much to be said about each person's design, how we're here to show up as ourselves. And when we do show up as ourselves, it creates much more ease and flow in our life, because we are being the people we're designed to be. We're not trying to show up and be the person we read about in that autobiography, that amazing Steve Jobs autobiography or whoever, right? It's like, that's him living his life. Maybe it wasn't even him living his life. He had a lot of resistance. He was a very angry person, right? Like he was really asserting himself in ways that maybe weren't right for him. And he could have done it in a way that was easier. So what we end up doing is trying to copy someone else's method to success, but it's totally incorrect for us, even if it's like from our father or mother, right? And then we look at our mother's design or our father's, and we realize, oh my God, they're a manifester and I'm a generator, right? Even like the fundamentals are wildly different. So this is the science of like who you are and how you're here to show up as yourself and stop living a life that's not for you. Because often we get programmed in places where we're open, where we're designed to be receptive. So this is a system that shows each person on a cellular level what gifts they have. And when you live your design, you're going to show up in a way that feels much better in your life, and things are going to work in a way that you can never have imagined in your mind, because you're tapping into something that's greater than your mind. You're letting your mind take the back seat. So divinity, God, grace, the universe, whatever name you want to call it, can come through you, and it can let your purpose unfold for you in a way that you could have never conceived of it through your little mind that thinks it knows all the answers. So that's how this works in a nutshell. But then let's get into like each person's chart, and where this information even comes from. So do you mind if I share my screen?
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so I got into this in like 2018. I met someone in New York, and they were like, "Oh, I got into this thing, human design. I want to like maybe know about your energy type. I think you're a generator." And I was like, "What does that even mean? What are you talking about?" So turns out I was a generator. They were right, because when I get excited, my energy gets palpable to other people. Right? You're a generator too, Zen. When you're excited, like that energy overflows. There's so much to be said about your chart and how you have these activations, like you have these activations in your throat, like me. So when you say something, you have an effect on other people, right? But yours is in gate 8, mine's in gate 23. So my activation in gate 23 is all about simplicity, breaking things down into their smallest parts so I can share them in their essence. Yours is the gate of the influencer, gate 8.
Can you pull up the chart and show me where, like,
so
I need to see a visual
exactly.
of this.
So that let me show you. First, I'll show you your chart. Right? We're going to kind of start backwards in a way.
And all you did was ask me for my basically birth time.
Yeah.
The date.
Exactly.
So my date.
Exactly.
And then you asked me for the location of where I was born.
Yeah.
That's
it.
That's
exactly.
all you need to do this.
That's it. So all you need is the exact minute that you were born.
Before we go into this, I was doing some homework, and it's basically taking principles from a lot of different ancient things, right? Like some quantum thing, Kabbalah,
exactly.
Taking a bunch of different things into one system, right?
You got it. So that's where I was going to start from the top. It's a synthesis, right? We have astrology, because the moment you were born creates an imprint on you. So like a bottle of wine, right? That bottle of wine from 1993 is a great bottle of wine because it has the qualities of that season. That was a great season for that Merlot or whatever you're drinking. So us similarly are impacted by the moment that we're born into. The cosmic season of our birth creates an imprint on us, right? Some people who are very skeptical say, "That's insane. That's so stupid, astrology. I don't believe in that woo-woo stuff." Those people are absurd, because look at what the sun does to our earth. Without the sun, nothing would exist on this planet, right? All life is given to us through the sun's energy and our ability to photosynthesize, create energy from that, live off of it. Look at the moon. We're mostly water, right? When there's a full moon, there's a reason they call it lunatics, because we're impacted by the moon cycles, right? Look at the crypto stuff, right? Look at who's the girl you had on a while ago from Australia? It's amazing, whatever her name is.
She's awesome. There's a lot of people who connect crypto and astrology.
Right, and it's through the moon cycles always. Like you're connecting that, because look, most of us are water. So clearly, when there's these things happening to the great consciousness, then you're going to see that reflected in everything. So big things affect small things. That's all you need to know, right? Look at like an influencer. If Kanye says something, everyone gets impacted by it, right? Bigger people affect smaller people. Bigger planets affect smaller planets, right? It's that simple. And you're going to say, well, I understand how the sun's important. I understand the moon's important. But you're going to say, I don't think Saturn's important, one of the largest planets, or Jupiter, or Neptune, or any of these other planets that are like monstrous. Of course, they have an impact on us. So this is the science of how those planets impacted you on a genetic level and created activations in your human design chart. So astrology shows us this on one level, but human design takes it another level to show you that you have a conscious imprint and you have a subconscious imprint. What's called your personality in astrology, and then your design in human design. And those two things come together to form your human design chart. So we're already getting a totally different system because we're getting two halves, we're getting two moments in time that create two imprints. And those two separate imprints are woven together in a quantum of your energy to create your design. So you can already start understanding even minutes, hours, differences, right? Creates wildly different human design charts because everything is changing with these different activations. If they pair up, they create colored in centers and channels. So I'll get into that. But we are weaving together astrology, the chakra system of India, which said that we have 7 chakras and it starts from the root and goes up to the crown. Well, in this system, we're telling you it's not a hierarchy. It doesn't go root to crown. We're not trying to bring all the energy to the crown to get enlightenment. That's not how it works. We changed, our circuitry changed in 1781. We became new beings genetically over time, right? It wasn't like 1781, boom, that day that happened. Why 1781? That was when the last planet, Uranus, was discovered. So when it was discovered by William Herschel in England, who wasn't an astronomer, he was just like a guy with a telescope and a big, fanatic. And he discovered this planet and he sent it into the Royal Observatory in London. And they were like, oh my God, you're right. This is crazy. So consciousness shifted at that time, right? Just like when there's certain things that happen in the world, right? We can clearly show a bifurcation of what happened before, what happened after. So similarly, 1781 created this major shift in humanity. And we moved from 7 centered beings or 7 chakra beings to 9 centered beings. And that circuitry changed everything for us. We used to use the mind to build our societies and get ahead in life. That was correct for us, to use our brain and our mind to like think about everything and make everything happen through the mind and make every decision through the mind itself. After 1781, we all got new circuitry. So each person, depending on your design, has a different way to make decisions. One person might be through their solar plexus. They need time to feel through their emotions to know if it's yes or no.
I want to mention that it's odd that it's a few years after 1776 where there was, that was,
Get
a
this.
lot of people said that was the beginning of a huge,
Yeah.
conscious revolution as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is that? 15 years difference?
Totally. And then, what I put up too, if you go to my page, my new map is my handle for Instagram and my website. If you go there, I put up a post on each type and, it's really in-depth stuff too. So people want to dig in a little bit. I put a lot of research on it. And on the post for projectors, I mentioned that. And I put it as a footnote, as this like a little asterisk. So what happened in 1781 at around the same time? Yes, there was the American Revolution and the French Revolution, right? So we see huge shift in what's happening. And as us, as unconscious level, right? There's big upheavals. And we can also say that's due to Pluto, right? Because that's what we're having now with this Pluto return. It's like a 278-year orbit. That's like Pluto, right? So that's what we're getting in this time period where everything is like coming up into, again, chaos. But also human design shows that this was supposed to happen. So 2027, the founder said, get ready for like big change. And big change happens every 7 years. As human beings, we have DNA in our, cells in our body. And our cells are replaced every 7 years, every cell in our body. This is except for like our bones, right? Our bones are the same. But every other cell in your body, including the bone marrow, is replaced minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour, week by week. So look at your skin, right? It's always shedding. You're always losing your skin all day long, right? All week long. Look at your stomach. If you eat a piece of food, the stomach lining sheds immediately because it's used for the digestion, right? It's just always replenishing itself. So everything in our body is like a river that's flowing. It's always changing. There's an old Greek phrase, you can't step into the same river twice. Why? Because it's always changing. It's never the same river, right? New molecules of water, new things floating by. It's a completely different river. So similarly, our body is constantly going through this metamorphosis. And over 7 years, they've bookmarked that time period where it's developmentally, we're completely different on a cellular level, even though we use the same blueprint. So it's like we have a brick house, that's our body. And each brick is a cell, right? Or maybe an organ, or you want to, but basically a cell. And each cell is replaced one by one over the time of 7 years. And it's the same blueprint. So we're like, yeah, it's the same house. I'm the same person. I'm not new after 7 years. Actually, we replaced every brick. So it's not the same house. The design is the same, yes, but it's a different body house. So the 7-year period is really important in human design. When people start learning this knowledge, they say, look at what happens when you start living your design and look at your life 7 years later. Because if you're really living and embodying that knowledge into your cells, you're awakening your consciousness, and you're going to be living something that's much more aligned, and everything in your life that you're doing before may be totally different. You might go through a process they call shattering, because everything that wasn't working is going to disappear. It's like you didn't actually feel a yes from that thing in your body. So you're like, nah, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And that might be scary because you're like, I'm a musician, right? And I'm like, but my body doesn't want me to like say yes to like certain gigs anymore because it's just a no. And I'm like, why? It's an easy gig. I'd make $500 for this one, right? But you just let your mind be like, it's all right, buddy. You can sit in the back seat. You're just like a drunk driver trying to control my life. Like you're like this passenger that's really designed to be a passenger. Like we're here to be in the present moment. We're not here to like be thinking our lives away. We're here to be present, enjoy the moment, and use our minds as a gift to other people more than ourselves. Because when you start understanding your design, you'll see if you start using your design for yourself, it's always the worst way. That selfishness, it's going to sabotage. It's going to be the lowest vibrational use of that activation in your chart. But when you use it in service, boom, you're automatically using it the right way. So it's like this beautiful thing that we already can see in our lives in so many areas. So, people who have like activations from the head to the ajna, right? They're always gonna be thinking all the time, thinking, because they're here to come up with the questions and then get clarity and inspire people. That's their gift. But if they're using those channels to try and think about their own life, first of all, they drive themselves crazy. And I know people like this who have that activation. I'm like, your mind is not for you. Your mind is meant to be inspiring other people and it's meant to ask the questions, etc. But when they use that channel for themselves, it just drives them crazy. It's just the wrong use of their energy. So there's so much to the system. And I've done like, so many self-help courses, read all these books. And then I realized after decades, and I finally found this system, half of that stuff wasn't even good for me because it's enforcing things that don't work for my design, right? This system is like, no one's designed the same. No one can have a blanket information from a book with a binary, live this way or live that way or whatever, but everyone can find the answers within. So that's the whole gift of this. It's like, how do you find your answers? Where do you find your answers? In your body, not your mind, because nobody has, they call it authority, human design. Your authority, what tells you what to do in your life. Nobody has authority in the mind. Everyone has authority in a different part or place of the body, depending on what is activated or colored in their chart. So getting through these fundamentals, yes, we have astrology, creates an imprint. We have the chakra system, but we've moved from 7 center beings to 9 center beings. We're not here to use our mind anymore. We're here to use the body to get the correct answer and to live that out, regardless of what the mind is thinking and worrying about, and, thinks is the best answer. The Kabbalah system, we have these spheres that in the Kabbalah tree of life. If you've seen that tree of life symbol, turn upside down, you get the human design chart, more or less. They have some extra centers that aren't on here yet. Even though we're eventually going to have more energy centers, we're going to move to be like 11 center beings over time. Not for us in our lifetime, but there's an expansion that's going on. So yes, those gates and channels form channels, which is similar to the Kabbalah system. The I Ching, this is where it gets incredible. So human design is really built on the I Ching. This is a 5,000-year-old system of knowledge from China. It says that there's energy passing through 64 gates all the time, right? And depending on which gate it's passing through, it's going to create that activation of that gate. Just like if the sun is in Taurus when you're born, you're going to be a Taurus. Or if the sun is in Cancer, then you're going to be a Cancer. So similarly, when the sun is passing through a certain gate, you're going to get the activation of that gate. So when we look at your human design chart, so like we look at Zach's chart here, we're going to see that activation of the sun was in gate 8, right? So when you were born on the 18th of May, that's where the sun was. So you got that activation as the strongest activation in your chart. 70% of the energy is from the position of the sun and the earth. So these are really important positions. Astrology, by the way, doesn't use the earth's position. So wild that human design does. And despite what anyone thinks about the shape of the earth and all that stuff, who the hell knows? We'll find out. But human design says if the sun is opposite the earth, right, if there's some polarity to the system, then there's energy coming from the earth that's imprinting us as well. So that's why in human design, we're using an imprint of the earth, but astrology doesn't. So, massive differences, right, in these two systems, but also similarities because we still have the sun, the earth, the moon, the north node of the moon, the south node of the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So those are the 13 activations from when you were born. You got that imprint in your chart. That imprint created those black lines that you can see in your design here, right? So gate 8, as I was saying, you have that here in your throat, right? There's gate 8. That's because the sun was there. So it's a really important activation. Now, what's interesting is, I have an activation in my throat too, but it's in gate 23. It's actually the one that's opposite that gate 8. So my gift is in that gate 23, right? Here's my design. My sun is in 23. It's all about making things simple through the way I can speak things from the connection from my ajna, the center for, it's like the third eye, but in Sanskrit. So that third eye center is called the ajna in human design. And when you have that colored in your chart, that means your mind is here to be running things over, thinking things through. And when you can get clarity, then you can express that in simple terms. And it's cool too, since we're born within a 5-day period of each other, we both have that 43-23 channeled. So it's only because the sun and the earth have that same 5-day period of the sun is in each gate for 5 days, right? There's 64 gates. And so it has to go through each of the 64 over 365 days. So each day the sun is in one gate. The sun is in one gate for 5 days. And since you were born in around the same time period, you got that activation of the 23 and the 43 as well. So anyway, but that's like my purpose is to make things simple for people, right? Even the system of knowledge is like insanely complex, and it's taken me years to kind of like get to a point where I could feel comfortable teaching this in a way that's like for the audience at large. And that's my cross. Like they call that like your profile, the 5-1. I'm here to teach things as the messenger and the investigator. And I'm not going to share that knowledge until I feel comfortable with it. I have to have a really strong foundation. That's the 1. It's the first number. So it's all about having a lot of research, right? So if we look at your chart then, we see the 8 as the most important gate, right? Because the sun is in gate 8. So that imprint is here in your throat. So that means you have this ability to say something and create impact with it, because gate 8 is about being what they call the art marketer. You have a voice that is impact. Gate 1 is what you're attracting into your life. Everything's magnetic, right? So if you have just gate 8, you don't need gate 1. By the way, you're going to feel like the biggest problem in your life is that you don't have gate 1, because look at what happened. If you had gate 1, it would connect these things. And just like to back up here, because we're kind of jumping around, we have 9 energy centers, right? They're colored in or not colored in. They're like the chakras. If they're colored in, it's because there's a connection, right? The 43-23 here is connecting those 2 centers. That's why they're both colored in. But over, down here, the 19 isn't connecting up to the 49. So the root center isn't colored in. It doesn't need to be colored in. You don't need that. You're not here to live that. You're here to be receptive in this area, right? So I'm here to tell you, like, you're going to feel a lot of pressure to get stuff done because you have an open root. You're always going to feel like, I need to do this today. You're under constant pressure, right? Me, I'm the opposite, right? I got a defined root. I can handle all the pressure in the world, but I also have no motivation, because you might be like, hey, let's do this podcast tomorrow. And I'm like, next week, next month, like no big deal, right? I don't feel the pressure at all because I have a buffer for it. But you do feel the pressure. So you're going to be someone who's going to be more motivated to get things done. You're going to be like, boom, I got to do it. But can you live like that sustainably? No, you can't, right? That would burn out your adrenal glands. That would like wear you out so hard if you're always in constant fight or flight. So if you have an open root in your design like Zen, that means you need to get comfortable with waiting for things, right? Like get comfortable and learn how to set boundaries of things that aren't 5-alarm stress, do it right now, right? So like maybe don't check your email on the weekend, or after 5 p.m. Because if you do check your email, you're going to be like, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff right now, right? You're just going to feel it. So what happens to people with open roots is they run around their whole life trying to be free of pressure. And you just don't need to feel it. Like you're here to feel it, and like you have this kickstart energy. By the way, a lot of Olympians have open roots. It's powerful. It's a gift when you use it the right way. But like, you can't have that Olympic startup energy of like, boom, every minute of the day. It's like taking like an adrenaline shot to the heart every freaking 5 minutes. It's crazy. You can't do that. So
that's why that's why I think I'm attracted to the weed, because weed's a thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of just like
we
mellow myself out, because I don't smoke weed. I'm like going crazy like all day.
Totally.
That makes sense now.
Right. So yeah, you can look at things like that and be like, that's a way that I'm finding a way to relieve the pressure. And then you can also, like from talking today, you could say, well, I have a choice here too. I can just create more boundaries of like, I'm not going to check the email. I'm going to check it these times. I'm going to tell people like, this is one, like, I don't, work on weekends or whatever it is, but create boundaries for that pressure, because you can't perform here consistently. It's open, right? This is a gas tank that's not full. It's flexible. Right? These aren't flexible. Your colored centers aren't flexible at all. They're fixed, but they're consistent. So you have like energy that's consistent here to lean in, to lean on and use. But you can't try and perform in areas where you're open. You're not here to do that. Like if you were, it would be colored in, but you're not, so it's about learning how to be free of pressure and understanding if you're making decisions from a place of, I'm doing this only just to be free of pressure. Because a lot of times you might be just making a decision just to try and get things off your plate. And that would be the wrong way to do it. Because for your design, you have the colored in solar plexus. Now, this is all about the emotions. Now, if you have this colored in, like Zen, 50% of the world does, by the way. If you have it colored in or defined, as they call it in human design, they call this defined or undefined if it's white. But when it's defined or colored in, it's fixed, right? And if it's fixed, that means in the solar plexus, God is the DJ, you're the radio, and you're on a constant roller coaster of emotions. You have no control over it's a happy song or a sad song, right? It's just like you're at the whim of this greater force giving you a high and a low all the time. So the only way for you to make decisions from a place of clarity is through time. You need time. And this isn't a weakness. It just means that you live on a different time wavelength than other people. And your wisdom can only be learned with time. If you make decisions in the moment, you'll never have wisdom, and you'll always be like, yeah, let's do it, because you're feeling really good and you're pumped and you're like, oh my God, yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. The next day, wake up like, why did I say yes to that thing? Like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe it. I'm so not in the mood to go to that dinner tonight or whatever is going on, because you made the decision from a snap judgment.
You said 50% of the people have this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So this is life change. By the way, relationships, everything can be totally changed just from knowing that about your human design. It's the greatest thing. Really helpful in my life with that, because I'm undefined here, right? So I'm undefined. I can make decisions in the moment. I'll be like, all right, it's a yes, right? Because my body, my sacral is saying, mm-hmm. And then for you, it's like you need to wait over time to see if that sacral is still saying yes tomorrow or the next day. So to get clearer on this, because I'm kind of jumping around, if you're a generator like me and Zen, and you have this colored in, 70% of the world are generators. So right away, you might be like, oh, I wish I was one of the more rare types, right? Like a projector or a manifester or a reflector, right? What it means for us is we're here to do work that makes us light up. We're here to do what we love. Because if we do what we love, our energy is radiating from us, right? Like this is the aura of the generator, right? Everyone has a heart that creates this electromagnetic torus field, right? We're all familiar with the torus and how that creates that Tesla.
Wait, so the heart creates the torus field?
Yeah, everyone, that's the aura that everybody's feeling.
What do you call the heart? Like the core chakra, or no?
Yeah, heart chakra. Yeah, the heart, and human design has a few names, right? So these are the centers, just to show you too. Right, we're talking about the solar plexus right now and the sacral, but we have the heart. The G center is a new center. This is like the heart actually split into the heart and the G center in 1781. And that's how we got like a newer center here. And the solar plexus split too, to create the solar plexus spleen difference. So what we're getting is these 9 centers, and the G center actually is all about love. So love isn't in the heart in human design. That's going to make, that doesn't make any sense. That's how it is in yoga and the Sanskrit Hindu system. Yes, it is, but we're different now. And with this new system, the G center is all about love, identity, direction, etc., location. But the other centers are the same, right? So the throat, all about manifestation. All energy must be manifested. So all energy in the human design chart is pointing to the throat, right? You can see the pathways. Now they all point here. All roads are leading to Rome because it must be spoken or, lived, like acted, manifested. So, right, Old Testament, first there was the word, then there was creation, right? The words we speak, like Chris from Come Up Better, right? He's always talking about the quantum language, right? The words we speak, right? And like 4 Agreements, all these great books that talk about like, be impeccable with your word, the first agreement, meaning don't gossip, don't say ill, don't say any of that stuff. You're speaking spells, right? Spelling, everything has an impact. But this even comes back to ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, right? The way we talk negatively about ourselves. Like no one beats us up like we beat up ourselves, right? Like no one would ever treat us like the way we treat ourselves in our mind. So anyway, the throat is the only center for manifestation. So all energy is being forced there. The head center and the root center are both pressure centers. So all energy is being pressured into the throat so it can be expressed in the world. So even though the G center is kind of like the center of the chart, it's really the throat where everything is being guided to, just so it can be released. The sacral, the root, the solar plexus, and the heart, these 4 centers are motor centers. So they're helping to circulate the energy as well. And again, it's all moving it through different circuitry to get to the throat. So, and the ajna, as I mentioned, is like the Sanskrit name for the third eye. So this is all about concepts. So like the head asks the question, right? What do I do? How does this work? Then the ajna creates the concept of how it works. And then the ajna gets to express it in the world through the throat. And we have these 3 awareness centers in the design. We have the ajna, which is like concepts. So this is mind. The spleen, which is body. This is intuition, bodily awareness, immune system. And the solar plexus is spirit. So we have mind, body, spirit, and all energy is being filtered through one of those centers before it even gets to the throat. So we understand how that, works on a conceptual level. We're all familiar with how we all work in a mind, body, spirit way, but then, that's how it has to work in human design. So what we're getting for each person is different. And what I was explaining was the solar plexus for you is defined, right? So the only way for you to get clarity, because you have that definition here, is to wait. And the waiting period could be 24, 48 hours, maybe a week or something, depending on what the topic is and what, the process you're going through. But when you wait, it's like in a courtroom, someone gets a piece of evidence, right? And then they made a decision because there was one piece of evidence. You'd be like, that was a very corrupt case. Like, how horrible is that? They didn't even see all the evidence, right? That's what you do when you make a decision in 1 minute. You need to wait for all the evidence to come in, because you're going to feel your way through in 24 hours if it's a true yes or a true no. And you're never going to feel the 100% yes or 100% no. But if you're at like 72% clarity after 24 or 48 hours or whatever, you're going to be like, cool, it's a yes. I felt through it. I told them, etc. And once you're clear, then you're going to be committing your energy, the sacred energy of the sacral. And you're going to be putting that into the right things that are true yeses. Because if you don't, then you become a generator, putting their battery, their life force. And this battery life force in the body, it's the ovaries, it's the testes, it's the creative energy that creates literal children, families, and the creativity in your life. So this battery that you're here to do what you love, and when you do what you love, you create that aura that's just like this field that's going inward and outward, right? Like that design we have here of that replenishing torus field. This is really the generator aura. It goes inward and outward, right? It's designed to come in because we're designed to know ourselves through the work that we do. That's our gift. We choose something that like lights us up. And by doing that, we get to learn who we are through the work that we do. So we're here to build and create as generators, but we're not here to build and create things that we don't like. If we do, then what you're going to get is what they call the not self theme. So as you can see on your chart, your not self theme is frustration. So when you start putting that battery into the wrong things, you're going to be feeling that heavy kind of slave energy of like, man, I'm not into this. Like, yeah, I have the power to do it. I have the energy, and people can sense it because my aura, like they can feel all that energy, that availability. But I said yes to it before I was clear. So what ends up happening is you end up putting all that energy into the wrong things. And you start feeling that frustration of like, you know, you have a job that pays well, but you have no passion in it anymore because you didn't actually make the decision in the correct way. Or you didn't check in with your body. You just made it through your brain of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get healthcare if I do that thing. Or I'm gonna like, you know, meet this person and then that's gonna happen and all this stuff. But if you tune into your body might be like, it's a no. And you know, you waited over time and it was like, tomorrow it's a no. Tomorrow afternoon it was like kinda, but then tomorrow evening it was like, oh, it's back to like a no. I'm at like 80% no. I'm gonna tell them it's a no. Thank you so much for offering, etc. So the best thing for you, Zach Zen, you know, like to do is to really, when someone writes you an email and says like, I want to do this thing, be like, cool, thanks so much for thinking of me. Love the idea. I want to be certain and clear before I commit my energy to this thing. Because if you don't go into it right, no one benefits. Lose, honestly. Like the gift of the generator doing what they love is like the math teacher who loves math. They make all their students fall in love with math because that energy is so palpable, right? It's like, oh my God, I want to learn from this person. This guy's the best, right? Like, you know, there's people who literally had math teachers like that. They're like, I want to have him for math. All the other teachers are gonna make me fall asleep or whatever, right? So that's your gift. When you as a generator show up in the right way to something that is a full body, yes. And for you, once you get that clarity over time, which is not a handicap, again, like you get deep wisdom by going the full journey. Like you get this clarity of like, you know, like I had to feel through it over time. And then it was a yes. So I committed my energy. And then the person who's waiting for it, like, look, I don't have it, right? I'm looking for that energy my whole life, right? So I'm like watching all these dramatic TV shows and movies and things to try and get some emotion, right? I'm literally craving emotion because I don't have it built into my life. I'm more like a flat line throughout my day when I'm not interacting with other people's auras. And this is quantum, right? So like we're talking right now, boom, our two charts are overlapping. We're getting a new circuitry, right? It's a quantum connection. So you have this connection with people when you talk on the phone. You have this when you're next to your partner and like your auras are connecting to each other within 6 feet of each other because, you know, each person's aura is a 6-foot radius. So all this bullshit for the last couple of years where you couldn't be within someone else's field. Well, no one could feel each other's aura. And then no one could connect and actually have new circuitry because look at my design. It's a puzzle piece, right? Look at your design. It's a puzzle piece. Like there's even connections right here, right? Like you got gate 21. Well, I got the 45 that connects to it, right? So when I connect to it, that's like the money channel. That's literally the ability to make money because I have the ability to direct the money and you have the ability to manage the resources of gate 21. Right. So it's like really cool. Like when we're talking, we can like have these amazing downloads and have things come to us because we're both creating a connection that neither of us has on our own, but we're looking for. And the planets are also giving us new activations every day.
Let me ask you this. Do you think this is probably really important for couples to learn together, right? And like learn
Life
both through like
changing.
how they design and
Oh,
you
yeah.
think that would be a good benefit?
Life changing. Yeah. So even the basics, right? Like you don't have to do a reading with me or whatever. I do this one-on-one with people where I do like one-on-one calls where I do 2 hours of like your design. And we just dive into like what it means to be you, what your natural gifts are, and what you're not here to do, right? Meaning like you don't have this colored in. You're not here to be stressed out about stuff all the time. You're not here to manage the stress like I am. Like I'm literally here to perform well under pressure. I can't ever expect you to perform under the pressure as well as I can because I have that buffer, right? Like your spleen is wide open. So you don't have that built-in intuition of making decisions in the moment that I would with a defined spleen. It's survival awareness. But since yours is so wide open, like look at that. It's like bleached white, no activation. What does that mean? You're picking up the energy of other people like crazy here. So you can become really intuitive just from picking up other stuff from other people, right? Like you have intuition, everyone does. But how do you use it? Yours is through the proxy of how you're connecting to other people and what you're picking up. So you're really going to pick up this survival energy. This is the oldest energy center, by the way. So when we were like cavemen and cavewomen, like all we had was like, don't go into that cave, right? Intuition kept us alive because there was a bear in that cave. So this was the oldest center. Then the mind came along, the ajna, and we started to understand the world. And then the throat physically mutated, right? The larynx opened up and created a mutation where we allowed for the voice box to get developed. And then we could turn our ideas into sounds and grunts, which slowly turned into language. So as we can understand, our bodies physically developed and the energy centers developed at the same time, along with the physical mutation of the body. So the oldest center here, the spleen, is all about intuition, survival, and then the immune system physically. So this is like the T cells in our blood, right? The spleen in the body. These areas are so important, right? And when you have this open, you don't have the consistent energy here. So when it comes to your health, Zen, like take time off longer than other people if you ever get sick. Like if I stay home for like 2 days, right? They say this about like kids to parents and, same for adults. If I'm home sick for 2 days, you stay home for 3, 4, whatever days, 5. And it's not because you're weaker. It has nothing to do with that. Don't ever think that you're weaker. You're sensitive. You're aware. It's not sensitive, weaker. It's I'm highly aware. So you're going to really pick up on stuff from other people. And you might even physically feel it. That's the crazy stuff. Like you walk into a room and it's like full of like bad energy, right? These horrible globalist people or whatever, right? You pick up all this horrible stuff, you're going to physically feel sick or ill. And I've heard this stuff too, like where someone like went to the Vatican, they felt physically horrible. And I was like, wow, that makes sense. And you have an undefined spleen and I don't. So you're really going to pick up that stuff before I do. Like I'll never pick it up because I'm here, I'm a transmitter, right?
It's funny, I've been saying this actually on a few live streams that I'm usually always healthy. And I got sick 2 times. The 2 times I got sick, the 2 times I got sick in the past 2 years, I've been all over, was when I hung out with a bunch of medical people. Like I was in a room full of medical professionals, nurses, doctors.
Wow.
And I picked up all their stuff and I got super sick both times I hung out with this group of people. And I was like, never again. I think they got fresh. They're probably freshly boosted, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I picked it all up. I got sick and I was out. And that was the 2 times I got sick in the past 2 years, was hanging around people like that. So
incredible. Yeah, look, you know it, man. It's straight up a gift to be that aware that you are that aware. Like you can use that in the right way. Like so many people I know have these centers that are wide open like that. Use that as like their business or part of their life. Like you can use this as like your intuition, right? It's all going to be about how you interact with the people and what you're picking up. And you're going to pick up their fear because that's what this center is really about, survival fear. And you might take it on personally. So that would be the wrong way to use it because you're always going to elevate what is happening in the center for you. So, same for me and my open centers, right? I'm going to pick up your emotions because you have them colored in and I don't, because you're a transmitter there, right? If you have a colored in center, you're a transmitter. If you have an open center, you're a receiver. So I'm receiving that emotional energy that you have and I'm going to take it. I'm going to bring it up to the next level if I'm not aware it's your energy. So that's like number 1 for couples, right? If your partner has that center colored in and you don't, right? You're like me, but white, you're actually just picking up their energy all the time emotionally. And often you're just going to amplify what it is and think it's yours. So they're going to come home and they're going to be feeling like upset and they're like a 6 or a 7, or you're going to bring it to a 10 because you don't even know what you're doing. It's an echo chamber, right? Like this is like a reverb tank for emotion. It's just like, boom, gets bigger, louder, more distorted. And that would be the way I'm using this wrong, is to always take that energy and amplify it and then think it's mine and be like, oh my God, I'm like crazy. And they're like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I was fine before you came home because like, I am like that still person, right? Emotionally, like, level. But if I'm aware, then the gift is someone comes home, they're upset. I can tell them what they're feeling. I can bring awareness to their emotional wave. And I'll say, you're at a 7 right now. Like, let's talk about it. Like, I can hold space for that emotion. I can really help them identify what they're feeling. And I'll be like, listen, don't say yes right now because you're at a 7. Later, you might be at a 2, right? So like, don't make a commitment until you're clear, right? Like that's the gift. And I've done this so much in my relationships is like, know that difference, because that's like fundamental. This is the most important energy center in the chart, right? So I'm looking for it everywhere. You have it, right? So when you say yes, boom, the impact is so strong because 50% of people are looking for it, but you only get the impact when you hold back. So you can't say yes immediately because it's like dating where you're playing hard to get, right? If you're like this beautiful woman and you just like say yes to someone right away, then they're like, oh yeah, cool. They show up late, they don't care. It's like this whole thing. But if you're like waiting to like share yourself, then it has an impact because you're like, first of all, I take this seriously. Like you might write them an email and say, hey, I'm thinking about what's going on. I want to be certain that I have the energy for this. I want to be clear that I'm committed. Cause like when I'm in, I'm in. So I want to be really clear. And they're gonna be like, oh, that's so cool. Thanks for taking the time. Yeah, totally take a day or two. Want you to be certain about this too. And they might even sweeten the deal over the time too, because they might be concerned about you walking away. Like, actually, let's like add 10,000 more to your salary, or let's do whatever. Like, we want to make this better for you, right? But you're just like, cool. I'll also take that into consideration over the next 24 hours. But you always need to think through it. And since I'm open here, I can just help you get some awareness of like, cool, you're up here right now, and now you're here, right? So I can just hold space for that. And same thing with partners. You're always going to be able to do that for each other. So that's the gift of those open centers. You're always going to give awareness to other people. So like Zen, you're going to be like, hey, you're really afraid of this stuff right now. Like you're going to pick up people's fears. You're going to be like, you're afraid of this, you're afraid of that, you're afraid of this. So you're going to be able to put your finger on it like nobody else. And it's going to be so easy. You're going to be like, you're straight up in survival mode right now. They're like, no, I'm not. And it's like, yes, you are. Because again, you're wide open here. You can feel every gate activation here that's putting them in that mode and with what they're transmitting. They're not even aware of it, right? Because they're in it. So that's the gift of that center, but it is sensitive and your health should be protected. The founder even said like people with defined spleens, he's like, give them all the crap, give them all the junk food, give them all the like vaccines. And these were like regular vaccines back in the day, not these like modern mRNA psycho things. But he was like, give them all that crap because it will make their immune system stronger because they're designed to process all the crap that's homogenized and come out stronger. But people with undefined, give them nothing. Like undefined spleen, you can't even have an Advil. You're like half an Advil. And they're like, you're a little baby. It's like, yeah, I'm a little baby. No, I don't care. This is how I'm built. I know what happens when I take a whole Advil. I'm not fucking stupid. Like this is how you should live your life as yourself. Like, my ex, open spleen, would take nothing, like literally no Advil, no nothing, like everything herbal, everything, natural, because that's what she needs, period. Cannot have anything traditional, strong. So really protect your health in that way because you're designed differently. It's not a weakness, it's a difference. So that's the awareness that you have, right? It's like you can really sense what's wrong there. The way this would work negatively in your life is you're going to pick up survival energy from people. So you might hold on to that energy because you're sensing it from other people, right? Like I have it. And they say like, if you're a mother and a daughter, right? And they like, the mom sends the daughter to her room because she's done something bad. And the daughter has an undefined spleen. So she's losing all the survival energy that her mother has because they were next to each other. And she was picking it all up and it made her feel good and safe and all these wonderful things. But when she's sent to her room, she's outside of that aura and she doesn't get the survival safety that she was picking up. So she goes into this like breakdown of like, I can't survive. I'm not here, right, to survive in the world. That's the deep fear of the undefined spleen, is thinking you can't survive in the world. And we live in a safe world. So that doesn't even matter anymore, right? Like physically, we're way off, way better off than we were. So the fear you need to get over in your life is if you're making decisions to hold on to things that aren't good for you, because the tendency that your mind is always going to tell you, because your mind is your open centers. It's all your open centers repeating this noise all day long, saying first, let's get everything done right now. Second, let's hold on to this thing because it makes me feel safe and I can't let go of it because it makes me feel safe and I need it. I need it because I don't feel safe in this world. And then you're going to think about things that don't matter because you're just going to pick up all the stuff in the world and some of it doesn't even matter to your own life. And you're going to be like going down rabbit holes that are just totally a waste of your time. So always ask yourself, is this actually important to my life? Does this register in my body as a yes? If it doesn't, next thought, don't worry about it. So for your, chart in particular, it's going to be about that stuff, right? That's what your mind is always going to be trying to make you make decisions. It's going to be some mixture of, oh my God, let's do this. This is so cool. Because it's just like interesting. But then you might check on your body later and be like, I don't actually care about that. I'm actually trying to think about other people's problems and find answers to their questions that aren't even my questions. Right? That would be the waste of your energy because you're going to use your colored in centers. You're going to be like, oh, I have this great mind. I can think as an individual and express it really clearly. And I can influence people and all that great stuff. But you're using all that stuff from an open center because you're acting on pressure, mental pressure from the world. That's not yours. It's just like, you're not here for that, You're here to like help people see that question, be like, cool, interesting. I can like read what's a good question because I'm open here. I can sense a good question and who has a good logical mind because I can sense it, I can read it. But you're not here to act from that pressure. You're not here to act from the pressure of what makes you feel good or act from the pressure of, get it done right now because it's the only thing I can live with because I can't live with the pressure anymore. For me, it's a different story, right? I'm here to like, first, I'm going to try and avoid truth and confrontation because I don't have the emotions colored in, right? If you have the emotions colored in, you're going to not be afraid of saying this is BS, etc. Like, you can go into the emotional battle. You can handle it, right? That's the gift of your design here, right? It's like, but you do not want to go into the emotional battle before you're clear. That's the whole thing. And I've done this with so many couples in my own relationships. You cannot have that argument about what you're upset about until the next day or tomorrow or 2 days later. And your partner, if they're open there and you're defined, tell her like, hey, if I'm trying to have this argument, just tell me, like, let's sleep on it and I'll listen. But I need you to remind me, let's sleep on it because you're going to want to solve it right now. And you're also going to want to solve it before you're even clear if it really upset you or not. Because like the next day, you're like, actually, it wasn't a big deal. Sorry. It was just like, I was just in a mood right then. It's not a big deal, really. And that's the reality. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not like bipolar. You're not manic. There's not any of this stuff. Like that's just how each person's designed differently. And when you understand it, you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, it's so different. Ha ha ha. So funny. You're so different. We're just different. It's great. So when you have it colored in, you might want to have a meltdown that night or have a fight or have the argument. And I've been through it. And what happens when you go through it is like, I can't physically process that energy. I don't have what it takes to handle it. So you're going to like short circuit me. Like, that's happened with my partner is like, she's had the meltdown. I've like felt it. I've been in that aura and like gone through it for like an hour or two talking. And then I can't sleep. I physically, like I'm laying there for 7 hours because it's coursing through my body and I can't handle all that energy because I'm not emotionally defined. I'm not here to do that. So I tried to say like, let's talk tomorrow, like literally talk tomorrow, not like sweep it under the rug, but like really, we're going to talk about tomorrow. I'm not going to avoid it. But if I'm using this energy center in the wrong way, then I'm always going to avoid truth and confrontation because I'm always afraid of that energy. It's too much. But really, I'm here to be open and help you see like your level on the wave. It's like, you're here. No, you're here, right? I'm here to give perspective, right? It's an open center. It's where I create wisdom in my life for the world. So I'm here to teach people about that energy that I'm picking up, right? The ego's open for me. I'm here to pick up people's self-worth. Who has a healthy sense of self-esteem? Who's a weak one, right? Who's got a nasty ego that's really assertive and it's using its power in the wrong way? Or who's got a really good one, right? So you have that colored in Zen. That's like you have this willpower that's consistent. You can perform in all these ways that I can't. You can make promises and keep them. I can't. I have no fuel in my willpower tank to make a promise and keep it. 70% of the world has that center white like me. So no one is really designed to make promises like we do because we can't fulfill them. So it's like, let's work out tomorrow at 7 a.m. You oversleep. And then literally is my life. Let's do it next day, 7 a.m. I oversleep. And then I start beating myself up and I'm like, I'm such a piece of trash. Like, this is ridiculous. This is my problem. This is like the whole issue of my life is I'm not consistent. I can't perform in these ways that I'm not designed to perform. I can't do it because I'm not here to do it. It's white because I did it in my past lives. That's why it's white. I learned the lessons, like you've mastered all that stuff in your spleen. Look at that. You nailed intuition and the purpose of that. Now you're here to just teach wisdom, because what you're receiving from everybody else, that's your gift there. You don't need that survival energy this lifetime because you already did it all before. So same with my open ego, man. Like I'm just here to pick up that motivational energy that you have or someone else has and be like, oh man, your self-esteem is awesome. It's just like you feel good, you radiate it, you have that willpower. And then when you leave the room, that willpower is gone. I'm like, yo, where's that willpower? That felt really good. Like I felt like I could really get it. Like you're going to really motivate people because they're picking up all that willpower that you have. Tony Robbins has it, right? He says something, everyone feels that. They're all like, yeah, let's get it, etc. They leave the lecture hall and then they're like, oh man, I don't know if I can get it anymore. I don't know if I can get that bread, because it's borrowed energy. It's not in their design. And they don't need to perform that way. They just think they do, because they have an open center. That's their mind is making them think they need to be that thing, but they're not, because it's attracted to the opposite. It's genetic attraction. We're all drawn to what we aren't. So it creates for a diverse world, right? We're always marrying the opposite. And then we have, diverse genes, et cetera. Good, safe thing for the gene pool. So we're going over a bunch of cool stuff here, but we're like, our charts are cool because they're so different, right? You got these definitions. I have these openness, right? This openness. Like you have a defined self identity, right? You're fixed. You are you. Whenever you walk into a room, you're the same guy, but you're here to be the same guy. In acting terms, I like to say you're like the Morgan Freeman. Every movie, you're the same actor, like literally same style of delivering lines, same character, all that stuff. But you're awesome as Morgan Freeman, always, right? Or whoever you want to say. I am the opposite. I'm like that Christian Bale method actor, right? Every film, I'm like gaining 50 pounds, losing. I'm a totally different person each room I walk into. But I'm here to be flexible. I'm here to be a different person for each person I meet, because I'm here to show them all the sides of themselves. So like when I'm talking to you, I'm holding space for all that stuff that you are, because I have none of it. The joke is I was trying to find it my whole life before I found human design. I was always trying to find out who I am. I was trying to find love outside of myself because it's not built into me, right? This center is about love, identity, direction. So I was looking for all that stuff outside of myself because it's open. And I was like, if I go here, then I'll know who I am. If I go there, then I'll find love. If I have this relationship, then I'll know who I am, right? All this crazy stuff you don't even do because you have that colored in. You're like, yeah, this is me. I'm not going to be like that guy because I'm me, right? It's like, it's so amazing this, because you're just seeing like, that's how you're effortlessly being yourself. That's what you're here to transmit. And when you're doing that, you're going to empower people to be themselves, because they're going to be like, that's so cool. Look at him being like that, because that's like the power of you being fixed here and having that colored in. So, the centers are colored in. I think was trying to say this. I don't know if I did, but they're colored in because there's a connection, right? It's like two Christmas lights light up because there's a wire between them. So, right, there's no wire connecting these. That's why it's not lit up. It doesn't need to be lit up, right? You're not here to be that person. You're here to be this person, what's colored in. And then the white centers is what you're here to teach everyone else about themselves and learn, because you can take it in. Like when you're speaking and transmitting, you're only repeating things that you know. But when you're listening, that's when you can actually learn something new, right? So your open centers, it's like the yin yang, right? There's two opposite energies. This is where you're drawing the energy from everyone else into the world. And it's not just the centers, it's the lines, right? These lines, line 48, I should say gate 48, gate 16. So these gates and these channels, right, they're also receptive. That's where you're picking up the energy of other people. So your partners, et cetera, like they have gates and channels that you don't. You're going to be able to help them see the power of that. Be like, that's so cool. Like you got that channel. I don't. Like that's your thing. It's not mine. I wish I had it. It's not, but I also got to give up on wishing I had it, because I don't need anything. My chart's perfect. Your chart's perfect. You weren't born at the wrong time. So the other part of the chart too, right? This is like everything I talk about in your chart that's colored in black, you're really going to relate to, because it's conscious. Just like in astrology, this is the conscious part of your design. It's called the personality. So we have an unconscious, subconscious imprint called the design. This comes into being from taking your birth time, which gave you all of this, and rewinding 88 degrees of the sun. So that's about 88, 90 days. The sun, right, going a 365-day orbit. If you move it back in that 365-day orbit, the 360 degrees, if you move that 360 degrees back to 88, you get about 90 days earlier. So the very beginning of the third trimester, when your mother was pregnant, that's where this imprint comes from. So human design says there's two imprints, subconscious, conscious. Who said this? A voice that came through the founder, and he downloaded this whole system. So in 1987, there's a Canadian guy. He's a composer, an advertiser, and he moved to Ibiza, Spain. He heard this voice basically tell him, like, you gotta, like, you know, change your life and go here. And he was like, what? This is crazy. I'm just gonna do that. So he left his life behind, moved to Spain. Then after living there for a while, this one night, this voice came through him, and he had this whole mystical experience for 8 days where he downloaded this whole system. And the whole story is insane, and it's pure madness, like the way it all happened and how he brought this thing through him. But after that time, he spent the rest of his life unpacking that information, and the information was downloaded to his physical body. So he never took a note in his life, and he spoke for hours. I listened to his lectures all the time, and his lectures, which are brilliant because he's never like fumbling because the knowledge is built into him. There's all coming out of him. It's literally nothing's on paper. It's just like him saying, well, this is how the chart works. This is how this works, etc. And then he met people over the course of his life. Like in the 90s, he met this woman who's like a German geneticist. And she was like, this is crazy. This is, you know, this is probably like fake pseudoscience bullshit. And I'm a geneticist. So I'm going to prove him wrong. Because he's saying that, you know, each person's activations from these planets is linked to a piece of our DNA. Well, let's see if that adds up, because I can prove it wrong. So she dove in, and sure enough, months and years later, she's like, this is insanely correct. It's unreal how perfect this is. This is the most mind-blowing system of knowledge. And she helped expand what he was working on to give him the actual names of the, what do you call it? In our DNA, we have different chemical compounds. And she gave him like, these are the strands that each chemical compound is affecting. So incredible way that this system grew into what it is today. And now it's reaching critical mass, because here we are about 30, 40 years later, where we have everyone basically hearing about the system and saying like, oh my God, this puts a whole new lens on my life, way bigger than astrology, way bigger than like anything else I've known about myself, because we're getting a subconscious imprint layered with a conscious. And then we're seeing how we trade energy. And you're here to trade energy as a generator, because you're not doing what you love. You're only generating frustration. And that's the energy that's flowing out of you, is deep frustration. And then you have people who don't have that battery, right? So they're picking up your energy like crazy because they're white right here in the sacral. And they're a projector or a manifestor or a reflector, right? All those other types, they don't have the battery. Only we do. So they're picking up our energy, and they're picking up all that pure frustration. And that's what they have to work with. They have this toxic fuel that they're filling their cars with, because that's what we're doing with our lives. Look at the whole earth. Everyone's doing jobs they hate because no one's making decisions through their body. They're all doing it through their mind. They're like, oh yeah, sure, Dad, I'll be a lawyer. That's a great idea. I'll make a lot of money. I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate my family. All this horrible stuff, because no one's actually following their sacral response. Right? They're choosing their partners based on their wealth as opposed to their passion or attraction to them, or the chemistry in the relationship, right? We need to make decisions through the body. Otherwise, we're going to have relationships that we hate, jobs that we hate. We're going to be full of frustration. And then like, you know, you walk into the world and you go into an office and everyone hates their job, and you can feel it. You can feel that there's no passion. But you go into a place where people love their job, like maybe some Silicon Valley startup or some crypto place or some like, I like to say Trader Joe's. Like you go into that place and you're like, wow, what's going on here? Like, is this a cult? Like, you know, like the excitement is so awesome. You're like, this is amazing, right? So that's generators doing things they love, right? You can feel the impact of what we do when we're aligned. So if you're not sharing your energy in the right way because you're choosing before you're clear, or you're just choosing not through the sacral, but you're choosing through the other open centers, you're like, I got to choose right now. I got to pick a job today. You know, because you're feeling all the pressure, and you're thinking about things that don't matter. Like, oh, maybe I'll do this job, maybe I'll do that job, or whatever. But if you're committing yourself, that power, to the wrong things, you're always going to be making frustration. And that's off course, right? That's your off course theme, not self. That's not who you are. You're not frustration. You will always feel frustration when you're trading your energy in the wrong way. So like in your car where it says low gas or check tire, right? You don't like get upset that it says check tires. You're like, okay, I'll pull over. Let me fix this issue before it's a bigger problem down the road. So when you feel frustration in your life, all you need to do is ask yourself, what did I say yes to before I was clear if it was a yes? And be like, that was it. I shouldn't have agreed to that thing because now I'm upset. Now I have to do that thing and I don't want to do it. Right? So
Wow.
it's a gift. The frustration is a gift. There's nothing wrong with it in your life. It's a tool. It's a diagnostic tool. It's like, and each person has a different one. If you're a generator, it's frustration. If you're a manifester, when they're off course, they have anger. Like they have this power behind what they're doing as a manifester. Only 8% of the world are manifestors. By the way, we're all raised to be manifestors. We're told to go out into the world and make things happen. The only people who have that power are manifestors. Generators have an aura that's attractive. Right? You see the shape of that aura? Look at it. It's pulling all of creation inwards to you. So you don't have to chase anything. It's literally brought to your doorstep. And it's the craziest thing when it happens because people come to your house, as they have for me, literally, and then they're like offering you contracts and music or whatever. And you're like, what? Like, how is this even possible? Like, like, how are these things even coming to me? And this happens on your phone. Like, look, if you see something on your phone, it's like, weekend retreat upstate. You're like, this is so cool. And your body is responding to it as a generator. Your body's like, I love it, right? It's this rising feeling. It's like this excitement. And if you have emotion definition, make sure you have time to think about it, right? So for you, it'd be like, make sure you're clear through your body over time. But if it's a yes.
Corey, I'm just pumped hard right now. It's up 50% while you're talking about all
Whoa!
this. Let's go.
Dope. So yeah, like the thing is, things can happen on your phone that pop up and they say like, there'll be this crypto or whatever, you'll see this thing and I'll be like, oh man, love it. And it's like, well, why do you love it? I don't know. But my body is saying yes to it. If your body says yes to something, then that's a sign in human design that you should engage with it. And that's like a no questions asked thing. It's like experiment with it. Everyone's here to experiment with their design and validate this information, right? This isn't a belief system. It isn't. It's not a religion. There's nothing like that. It's a system of knowledge. There's no belief. It's all about experimentation. So like you're given your design, you're given the tools, the roadmap, the compass to tell you to turn left, turn right, based on your strategy and authority. So your strategy as a generator is to respond to things. Let things come to you. And then you either say yes or no to them because your body is going to be, love it. Don't love it. But you can't say it in the second, in the moment for you because you have that emotional definition. You need time, right? I could say it in the moment because this isn't colored in for me. So I can be like, love it, don't love it. And that's weird for some people. They're like, do you want to get lunch tomorrow? I'm like, nope. They're like, well, let me ask you tomorrow. Like this, that's weird. I'll be like,
you click on I don't think you clicked on the 4 aura types
yeah.
yet.
So these are the types. I was going to get to this. Yeah. So we have 4 different energy types, right? So the generator aura goes everywhere, right? That's that bonfire kind of aura that we have. If someone's sitting next to us, they feel our aura. We don't have to like focus our energy on them. It just comes out and goes everywhere and they feel it. It's not offered to them. It's not denied to them. It's impersonal. It's enveloping. It's that expansive, but it comes back inward kind of aura. The projector aura is a focused version where it plugs into one person at a time and it draws their energy and it's here to help guide the energy that generators have. Graph is a projector. So when we were talking that one time for a few minutes, I pulled up his chart and I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense because he can really read that energy of other people and be like, this is what's up. And he can guide people's energy really well. But your aura as a generator is that kind that like if you're going to say something or do something, it's going to really be felt by other people because you're creating that aura, right? You're setting the tone of that excitement. And then other people can help shape that and guide that. The manifestor aura is basically the opposite of generator aura. It's closed and it's repelling. So you can't actually get into the aura of a manifestor if you know one. You'll be beside them and your aura is trying to draw them in as a generator, but it won't actually be able to penetrate their aura because they have a closed protective aura. They're not here to interact in the same way. A manifestor is the aura that is here to impact other people. And they do that through their throat, which is connected to one of the motors. So like right here, it's connected to the ego or the heart. So when they say something, it has impact. Or they do something, they have this drive to kind of start things up. Like when you strike a match, that's the manifester. It's like that boom, that like startup energy that's huge. But the slow burn, that's us. That's the bonfire, right? So the manifester can get things started, but they can't follow through because they don't have that sacral energy that we do as the builders, the workers, the passionate doers as generators. So that's the cool thing is like a manifester can be like, I have this idea, I want to get this thing started. And then a generator can be like, I love it. I want to jump on that train and make that thing happen, right? Like I can actually do it because I'm interested and I have my desire is there. So we can actually accomplish the things that the manifestors have the ideas for. So like throughout history, manifestors were the kings and queens because they were able to rise to the top because they had the power to kind of lead in that way. They were wired for it. And the generators were often doing the work, but it was through like force. It wasn't like a healthy way to trade energy. We were like the people who built the things, but it was like begrudgingly because the manifestors were like forcing us to do these things often. So it was kind of an incorrect use of that hierarchy. And then projectors came into being in 1781, and they're like here to guide how we use all our energy. So projectors are like, well, cool, you guys are running around starting things, and then you guys are doing them, generators and manifestors. But the projector is like, let's find a way to do it efficiently. Let's do it a smart way. Let's conserve energy and do this in a way that's smart for all of us. And then the reflector is really interesting because they have every energy center open. They're only 1% of the world. So they're rare, not extremely rare because there's millions of them, right? There's 1% of the world, millions and millions of people. So for every 100 people, there's one reflector. And the reflector is here to diagnose each individual or each community that they're in because they can really pick up and feel all the energy of other people. So this can be overwhelming for them because they're taking on stuff, but it's only sampled. Generators and projectors actually take energy in deeper, but reflectors take in all the energy because they have all open centers. Nobody else has all open or white centers. So that reflector aura is very unique, and they're really sensitive to their environment. So they're like the canary in the coal mine. If they're in an unhealthy place, that reflector will be super unhappy with their life. They'll be like, not lit up, etc. Like they'll be like a symptom of an unhealthy workplace or an unhealthy community. But if a reflector is happy because they're in a good environment, like they're going to take that energy to the next level. So they're going to be like the best marker of alignment in that way. So they're here to really help us see how energy is being used in this big picture way. And the crazy thing about them is they have a link to the moon. Everyone else is a solar being, and reflectors are lunar beings. So through a moon cycle, throughout 28 days, they go through enormous changes. So reflectors actually have to wait 28 days before they know what to do, if it's a yes or a no, right? So you're like 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, several days. Doesn't seem so bad in comparison to the reflector who has to wait 28 days for every major decision because that's how they get clarity.
Days, huh?
Yeah, a moon cycle. Because everything's changing for them. Like they basically go through a year in 28 days. The moon goes through 28 gates. It goes through 64 gates in 28 days. So sped up version of a year. Like we're solar beings. So the sun goes through 64 gates in 365 days. So they're getting this huge journey. So if they make a decision before that mini journey is over in 28 days, they're not going to know if they feel this way or this way or this way. So that's the fundamental thing.
That's something that, someone that's a reflector might, this would change their entire life just learning this information, I think. So
life-changing. Yeah.
What is the process? Let's say someone's listening
Yeah.
to this right now. They're like, yep, I'm loving this information.
Cool.
How do they, what's the next steps for them? How do they actually learn their chart?
Absolutely.
Do you do coaching sessions or
what's
going on?
Totally. So you can just go on my site or on my Instagram, my new map. There's a link in the bio and it says, get your free chart. This takes you to this website, Jovian Archive. It's like the official website for human design. Other people have charts on their sites and other, people have this offered, but I really wouldn't recommend other people's systems besides the official because I've seen differences based on the birth time, even being the same. So it's like let's not use a system that we're not certain of. I don't know how they're calculating the chart, but the one I am certain of, that's the one I recommend. So find out your chart based on the birth time. You need your birth hour and minute, right? So it's city, state, country, month, day, year, and then hour and minute. And when you have that correct, you can put it into the website, and you put it in military time. So if you're born at 11 at night, you're going to put in 23, and you're going to put in like 23, 40, 11:40 at night. So make sure you're putting it in correctly, and then hit calculate, and you'll be able to see, your own design. And based on that, on my website and on my Instagram, I put up tons of stuff based on each basic type. So like generator, projector, reflector. So there's a great thing to start with. You want to, understand the basics of how to trade energy, because there's so much detail. Like, what we're talking about today is like overview stuff of your chart. But like, right, I didn't get to talk about all the details of these activations, right? There's so much to be said. That's why I spend about 2 hours talking to each person on these Zoom calls, where I get into so many details and how it basically adds up into this fingerprint that's your energy. No one has this activation set up like you, right? So, I talked about like your ability to manage resources well with gate 21, and impact people through your throat with gate 8, the influencer, the art marketer, right? But you don't have gate 1, which is the artist. So you might be looking for something to sell your whole life. You're here to find the artist. You're here to find the creation. So you're here to find what's cool and market it. You don't need to be the artist, because you're going to magnetically bring the artist into your life. So people with gate 1 are coming to you in your life, or things in the world.
That's exactly what I was been doing.
Yeah. No, it's incredible, right? Like when you start understanding your design, like, dude, it's life changing. Like sometimes it brings me to tears where I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is my brother's design. This is my design. It's so different. I got to stop telling him to do it this way, because he can't do it that way. He's not built to do it that way. It's the opposite of me, right? Like if someone has an undefined throat, it's going to be really hard for them to speak their truth, because their throat is white. They're going to have trouble articulating. It's not consistent. So don't put pressure on them to speak. It might be easier for them to text, not put physical pressure on their voice in the voice box. So when you start understanding everyone's design is different, it's like, man, I got to like ease up on the way I'm telling people to live their life or be, or what I expect them to be, because they have a totally different thing. And then there's power in that. Like people with undefined throats, they can read the energy of other people who have it defined. So they're going to read the way we're speaking and doing, me and Zen, who I've colored in, and they're going to be like, that's authentic, or that's inauthentic, right? Someone's telling the truth or not. What they're doing is a true representation of what they're saying, or it isn't, because that's the power of the undefined throat. And it's also really good at speaking up for other people. So they can be like advocates in the world for people who don't have a voice. So undefined throat people, they're like, he needs this, she needs this. Let's do this for these people. Like amazing for them. It's so easy to do it. But when it comes to them, you're like, hey, what do you need? They're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. Right? It's really hard to force that energy to the throat for them, because it's not here to be expressed in that way. So, those are some like basics of like how this works and how each person's different. But, like there's so much detail in each person's design. That's what, you need a reading to kind of get into that. And I do that, and by the way, I'll make like a coupon code for you guys too, because I love this community. Everything you've shared, Zen, is like life-changing with crypto and otherwise. So if you want to like do Zen 20, I'll do like a 20% off coupon for anybody interested to do a reading over Zoom.
Yeah, so I'll share that in all the groups, Telegram, Discord. I think people could benefit from this, because it's something that, Gary Vaynerchuk, he says it all the time. You got to have sensory acuity. You got to have sensory acuity if you want to be successful. But the problem is, like, these people think they have they don't know how to actually gain sensory acuity. That's what, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Is a better word to say. It's more self-awareness he talks about all the time.
Yeah.
But how do you become self-aware if you're not self-aware? Like, if you have no one to tell you, hey, dude, you're not self-aware, who's going to be the one to tell you? Who's going to teach you how to become self-aware? And this right here is like, just in this, we've been on for like an hour, taught me so much about myself, and I'm starting to realize, oh, that's why I do this. That's why I do this. That's why I get frustrated. And it's like, whoa, I'm excited to talk with you more and go even deeper, because this is life-changing information. And now I know why Chris O'Brien he did a little thing with me. We didn't go as in depth, but now I know why he believes in this stuff so much.
Yeah, it's the most incredible blueprint to who you are and who you aren't. You know, it shows you where you end and where other people begin, right? So like all the fear that your feelings in is other people's stuff.
Well,
That's not
what would you
yours.
say that you became less like judgmental since
Oh
learning
my,
this?
yeah. Look, I realize that everyone's process is different, and what it brings you back to at the end of the day is love. It shows you how to love yourself for who you are and to deeply appreciate what you've been given in your life and how you're here to live that out in a way that's so easy because it's built into you, right? Like that's it. It's just you are expressing it always, but are you using it? Often people aren't, you know, like I can say how I've used some things in some areas of my life, but I haven't used them all. So this can show you like, oh, I'm here to use all of this stuff at once. Like this is the imprint that boom is is consistent. So, you know, all that stuff that you're feeling that's like external, that's all the open stuff, right? That's not yours, right? Like my chart, I'm going to feel everyone's emotions. I'm going to feel everyone's like desires and what they're driven by, right? I'm going to be thinking about things that don't matter because again, I'm picking up all that stuff that people are have questions about. And then I'm going to like be trying to find my identity in everything and find love outside of myself, right? So like I gave up on so much stuff that I used to live my life based on. Every decision was about trying to find out who I am. And now I'm like, I'm everything, I'm everyone because I'm wide open here. And when I talk to you, I'm going to help you see yourself. I'm going to help you love yourself because I'll be like, look at everything I'm picking up. This is you, that's what you love. And I can feel it. And I can show you how powerful that love is for that thing in your life. Because again, like I'm just wide open here. Like certain spiritual teachers had that, like Osho, he had that wide open. So again, he was always like, you are not your identity.
So do you could use this system to learn about other people as well? Like
Totally.
that's pretty cool.
Totally.
So has anyone like
Yeah.
looked into like all the greats charts and like
Oh yeah.
put some
I've looked at
information
like
together?
so many, like Trump or like Hitler or all these people. Like Hitler was a manifester. When he said something, like boom, it had an impact. Trump has that connection too with like I think it's the 1222 or the 3536. Like when he says something, it impacts people's emotions, right? Same with Russell Brand. I was like laughing because Russell Brand was talking about Trump in his one video, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting. So when Russell Brand was saying, look, when Trump makes a joke, everyone laughs. It's insane. He says like Hillary and everyone boos. And like, I've never seen that amazing thing. Like he's like, love Trump or hate him. He has this power with his people. And I was like laughing because I looked at Russell Brand's chart and he has that too. He's this amazing way of making jokes and being spontaneous. And like everything in his chart connects in like one piece, right? I have this huge split in my chart, right? I got the stuff down here. I got the stuff up here. It's split, right? So it takes time for all this stuff to connect in my life. You have several splits, right? They say like triple split. So you have one circuit here, you have another circuit here, and another circuit there, and they're not communicating. They don't need to communicate directly. But again, it takes time for things to make sense for you. So allow time to process because you have these splits where things are going to connect over time, where someone walks into your aura and they have gate 1, so they connect that. And then another person walks in, they got gate 45, it connects that for you. So anyway, since we're split, things take longer in our life to make sense because we have different motors processing life, but those motors aren't in connection with each other. But like a guy like Russell Brand, it all connects. So he's like the most amazing spontaneous comedian because it's like everything is in circuit with itself. It's like makes amazing sense. So yeah, it's really beautiful. Like understand, people in history and whatnot. And I put that up on my Instagram too. If you go to like my Instagram, you can see like famous manifestors, famous projectors, famous generators, etc. The last slide, I put up, some of the famous people for each type. So yeah, it goes on forever. Like it goes into like, how each person's designed to eat food differently because their body is different, right? Like Ayurveda from India talks about that. And that stuff even goes beyond often stuff that I'm teaching. But it's the greatest tool to understand yourself, love yourself, and then to love other people for who they are and how wildly different that is from you and what you can learn from that because their perspective is different or opposing, etc. And how you like your energy can be completed by another person and vice versa. So yeah, it's really powerful. I didn't get to show the slide, but the way it works, we have 64 codons in our DNA, and those are grouped into 6 amino acids per codon. And the I Ching, 5,000 years old, predating everything you can imagine, the Bible, etc., shows there's 64 hexagrams and there's 6 lines per hexagram. So DNA is only what, like 75 years old on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Watson and Crick discovered it. Yet it's a perfect parallel for our DNA. And then the amino acids per group, 6 lines per hexagram. So that's what we're seeing is like we have the I Ching's hexagrams, and they perfectly correspond to the activations in our DNA. So when you look at your design, we're just looking at what was genetically activated and who you are and how you're here to express that and how you're here to learn about that. And, there's so much to say, like your profile type is the warmest type. Like, you have the 4 is all about your network is your net worth. That's your life. Like that's you as a 4/6. You're here to talk to people, network all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
And the
my
4/6
gosh.
is the warmest energy. Like, your personality archetype, that's the 4/6, is like the warmest of all 12 types. So it's like the super friendly, welcoming, like no one in your life is your friend. Everyone's family. That's how it is for a 4/6.
Nice.
It's all about family. So like that's the warmth that you're radiating as a 4/6 person. Your whole chart is draped in that 4/6. Where it comes from is the dot 4 up here and the dot 6 over here. So remember, 70% of the energy is coming from the sun and the earth on both sides.
So like this
So
probably happens, when you hear about people say phrases in dating like, "Oh, you complete me."
yeah,
The person they're talking to probably has these energy centers that the
yeah,
other person needs, and like
oh yeah,
they can they complete each other.
totally. And that's great. And even like the needs I would quote, right? Because again, you don't need anything. Your chart is perfect as it is. My chart is
Right.
perfect as it is. I'm here to be that puzzle piece. I'm here to plug into other people and help them complete their life and the world complete its process and all that. But no one needs another's energy. But you're gonna feel it. Like you're gonna hold on to stuff that isn't good for you because you feel safe because you're picking up survival energy. But you don't need it. You can just use it in the right way to save your own life because you're going to be picking up all this stuff. You're like, not that way, not going to do it that way, not going to do it that way, because you're going to be able to sense all the wrong stuff, right? So it's like, you're going to have access to intuition, but it's going to be through everything that you're picking up as opposed to what is built into you. So
Well, let's get you let's have you come back on if you want to go deeper into this stuff. And I
yeah,
think we already been on for like an hour and a half, so this is
yeah,
already super long. I don't want to
yeah,
let's save some of the good information for another episode. And
totally, man.
let's you could go more into like the story, the creation, less about the
Yeah,
charts if you want to come back on.
you got it.
Let's see. I think people are gonna love this episode. But yeah, let's where can they find you again? What are the
Yeah,
websites?
my site is mynewmap.com. The map is everyone has their own
I'll
design.
put it in the description.
Yeah, cool.
Then
And
you got
then,
it. You got an Instagram. What else you
yeah, the
got?
Insta is at my new map, and you can find out a bunch of stuff about your chart just from reading my post there. And yeah,
And
those
then
are
we got the
the major
20%
ways.
off.
Yeah,
20% off is
20%
going to
off.
be in the
Zen
description
20.
below as well. So
Cool.
yeah. So I mean, I learned a lot. I had a great experience here, and hopefully some people could use your services. We officially have a human design coach in the Zen Lounge now. So
Let's do it.
this is going to be all. I mean, when we all get rich off this crypto, I mean, what better investment can we make than learning? They always say invest in yourself. That's going to be the best.
Yeah.
Like Warren Buffett, out of everything he's invested into, the thing that brought him the most ROI was investing into himself. And
Yeah.
so many people say that. And you said you took a bunch of personal development classes. I
Oh, yeah.
invested a bunch. So I'm into it. I think that if you learn more about yourself, you'll be performing at a higher level and you'll
Yeah.
bring, probably more ROI than crypto could even bring. It's insane. So that's my thoughts on investing in yourself. So invest in some coaching. If you're interested, use the description below. And we're going to go deeper into the human design. We're going to do another episode about the whole history because I'm fascinated and I'm blown away. So thank you guys for joining the Zen Lounge podcast. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave some comments who support Kieran, and everybody, peace.
Peace.